Welcome to another episode of Giving Meaning to the Good Life. I am your host, Uriel, and today we delve into the profound impact of self examination, relationships, and spirituality on our journey towards living the good life through happiness, harmony, and fulfillment. Joining me, there's a special guest, Chema, who will share his insights on this topic.
Absolutely. Today, Uriel and I are going to explore a question that has puzzled philosophers for centuries: the meaning of the good life.
Chema, for you, what does it mean to live a good life?
It's a profound question, Uriel. Different cultures, religions, and individuals have varying perspectives on what constitutes a good life. Some might argue that it's about wealth, success, and achievements, while others, as you mentioned, might focus on self-examination, relationships, and spirituality.
Absolutely, Chema, and I'm glad you brought up the importance of these topics. In my opinion, these elements play a crucial role in shaping the good life.
Yeah, for sure, Uriel. But I think it's crucial to acknowledge that not everyone has had the same opportunities to pursue the good life. Take, for example, the experiences of those who had lived in residential schools. Their encounters were far from what most people consider a good life.
Yeah, that's true. I remember the blanket exercise we did in class, where we learned about the impact of residential school systems on personal relationships. We also talked about individuals' actions and the consequences that the First Nations communities have been enduring. In my opinion, relationships are like the glue that holds our lives together.
Right. They provide us with emotional support, a sense of belonging, and opportunities for personal growth. Just think of the trauma suffered by Indigenous children. This disrupted their family bonds. Imagine living without such crucial relationships.
Exactly. I will think that when people are stripped from that experience, the result is trauma that lasts across generations.
Yeah, if we look further, we can see how this led them to feel disconnected from their communities. Imagine living with that lack of role models, not being able to speak in your mother tongue, and being unable to have a conversation with their families. I think that this highlights how integral relationships are to a good life.
Right, that is horrifying. I can't begin to imagine what that must have been like. But you're right, positive relationships are integral to the good life.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you, what would you say is your biggest positive relationship, and what does it bring to your life?
Well, I would say my biggest relationship is the one that I have with God. It brings me many positive personal benefits. I gained a sense of value and security. I believe that when we surround ourselves with positive influences, it becomes easier to strive for moral excellence and self improvement.
True, that reminds me of one of my favorite Bible verses, which is Psalms 37:4. It mentions that if you delight yourself in the Lord, He will give you the desires of your heart.
Spirituality is certainly another aspect that can help bring you closer to the good life. My relationship with God is rooted in faith and spirituality. I consider it a source of ultimate fulfillment and eudaimonia.
Right, I wanted to ask you about that word. What is eudaimonia, and where did you hear about it?
I found a video on YouTube. It's called Crash Course Philosophy. I think it was number 46. In the video, Hank Green says that eudaimonia is a concept first described by Aristotle. And he describes it as a life of flourishing, a life in which a person is constantly striving for self-improvement, to be more virtuous, more wise, more thoughtful, and self-aware.
Yeah, well said. Aristotle talked a lot about self-examination. He said that an unexamined life was not worth living. So I wanted to ask you, have you experienced the transformative power of self-examination in your own life?
Absolutely. It's about striving to become a better version of who we are. Happiness isn't just a fleeting emotion, it's a consequence of aligning our desires with principles and values that lead to a meaningful life.
Yeah, I agree with that. For me, self-awareness is like a compass guiding us through life. When we understand ourselves, we can make better choices that lead to a positive mental well-being. And as you said, happiness becomes a natural byproduct of a life well lived in accordance with these principles.
Right, and I think there are many methods to practice self-awareness. For example, one powerful method was the blanket exercise, which we talked about previously. This experience allowed us to further develop virtues such as empathy and social responsibility. Through engaging in reconciliation, we can gain a comprehensive understanding of historical traumas faced by indigenous communities.
Yeah, that's a powerful connection, Uriel. The idea that through understanding, empathy, and actively working towards reconciliation, we can contribute to a collective sense of flourishing. It aligns with the principles of eudaimonia, emphasizing not just individual well-being, but the well-being of the community as a whole.
Well said, Shema. I think we're running out of time, but I want to ask you one last thing. After all this discussion, what would you now say is your definition of the good life?
That's interesting. I would probably say that the good life is one in which a person has found meaning within himself and is in constant questioning of their position in order to improve, always striving to be better.
Thank you, Chema, for joining me today and sharing your perspectives on relationships, self-examination, and spirituality in the pursuit of happiness. And to our listeners, remember the good life is not just about seeking happiness, but living in alignment with virtuous principles and values. Thank you for listening. Until next time.